On the 23rd of September 1974, the United States Mint did something it had never done before and has never done since. It opened the doors of the Fort Knox bullion depository and let outsiders walk in. Around 100 of them. Members of Congress, newspaper reporters, television crews, they did it because a man had been going on the radio saying the gold was gone, that it had been quietly removed, sold off, shipped overseas, and that the vaults under Kentucky were empty. The Treasury decided the fastest way to end the rumor was to prove it wrong. So they opened a vault and they let the press photograph the gold. And it did not work. The rumors did not stop. They have not stopped in the 50 years since. Now, the usual explanation for why they did not stop is that people are paranoid, or that conspiracy theories are simply immune to evidence. That is not the reason. The reason that day failed to settle anything is specific, technical, and entirely legitimate. And once you understand what those 100 people were actually shown, you understand why the question is still open. The United States Bullion Depository was built in 1936 on a corner of the Fort Knox Army Post in Kentucky. The first gold arrived by train in January 1937, guarded by the Army along the entire route. It is a squat granite and concrete box. The vault door weighs more than 20 tons. No single person is supposed to know the full combination. It is split between staff members who each know only their portion. Inside, according to the Treasury, sit 147.3 million troy ounces of gold, roughly 4,583 metric tons. About half of all the gold the United States government claims to own. And here is the first number that should make you sit up. On the Treasury's own books, that gold is carried at $42.22 per ounce. Not a typo. $42. That figure was set by statute in 1973 and has never been updated. It values the entire Fort Knox holding at about $6.2 billion. At any market price of the last several years, the real figure is in the hundreds of billions. The United States government carries one of the largest concentrations of wealth on the planet on its balance sheet at roughly 1% of what it is worth. That gap is not an accounting error. It is a deliberate choice, and we will come back to why it matters more than the conspiracy does. But first, the question everybody actually arrives here asking: when did somebody last open every compartment, weigh every bar, and test the metal to confirm it is what the label says? The answer is 1953. And the reason that answer is both true and misleading is the whole story. Now, when most people hear the word audit, they picture someone walking into a vault and counting. A genuine bullion audit is nothing like that. It has 3 parts and all 3 have to happen. You count. Every bar, every compartment, matched against the register. You weigh. Because a bar can be the right size and the wrong mass, and you assay. This is the part people forget, and it is the part that matters. You physically drill into the bar, take a sample of the metal from inside it, and test its purity in a laboratory. Without an assay, you have confirmed the presence of a gold-colored object. You have not confirmed gold. In 1953, under the Eisenhower administration, the Treasury ran the last audit that did all 3 across the depository, and even that one had a limit that is rarely mentioned. The 1953 audit sampled roughly 5% of the bars for assay. Not all of them. 5% tested and the results extrapolated across the rest. That is standard practice in inventory auditing. It is not scandalous, but it means that even the gold standard of Fort Knox audits, the one everybody cites as the last real check, physically verified the metal inside about 1 bar in 20. After 1953, the Treasury moved to a different system entirely. Between 1975 and 1986, auditors worked through the depository compartment by compartment. As each one was verified, it was closed and sealed with a numbered, tamper-evident seal, and the compartment was recorded as settled. And from that point forward, the annual audit changed meaning. Each year, the Treasury's Office of Inspector General visits and confirms that the seals are intact and the numbers match the register. That is a real audit. It is signed, it is filed, it is public. But notice precisely what it verifies. It verifies that nobody has opened the compartment since the last time somebody looked. It does not reweigh the bars. It does not reassay the metal. The chain of trust runs back to whoever verified the contents before the seal went on. In many cases, that is the 1970s. In some, it reaches back to 1953. Now rewind to that day in September 1974, with 100 reporters and congressmen standing in the depository. They were not shown the gold. They were shown one compartment, 1 out of 13, selected by the mint. The bars were there. The photographs are real. Nobody has ever produced a shred of evidence that they were anything other than gold. But a photograph of one open compartment, chosen by the institution being questioned, is not an audit. It never could be. Those 100 people were given exactly enough to make a headline and nothing that would satisfy an auditor, and that is why the rumors survived the day intact. The Treasury solved a public relations problem in 1974. It never solved the verification problem because it was never trying to. And the pattern has repeated almost exactly every time the question resurfaces. In August 2017, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin flew to Kentucky with the Senate Majority Leader and the governor. They went inside. Mnuchin came out and said publicly that he was glad to report the gold was still there. He looked at a compartment. It was a visit, not an audit, and to his credit, he never claimed otherwise. But it was reported around the world as confirmation. In early 2025, the question went mainstream again when the president and Elon Musk publicly discussed live streaming an audit of the depository. Enormous attention, weeks of coverage, and each time the cycle runs the same way. Somebody important goes and looks, photographs are taken. The coverage treats a visit as a verification. And the underlying fact that no comprehensive, independent, publicly documented count, weigh, and assay has been performed since 1953 remains exactly as true afterwards as it was before. There is a reason nobody wants to do the real one, and it is not what you think. Because here is a detail about the metal inside Fort Knox that most people have never heard, and once you know it, the audit question changes shape entirely. The gold in there is not good delivery bullion. It is not the 400-ounce, 99.5% pure bars that trade in London and Zurich today. A large portion of the Fort Knox holding is what the mint calls coin melt. Coin melt bars are exactly what the name says. They were made by melting down gold coins, and the coins they were melted from were the ones the American public handed in during 1933 and 1934, under Executive Order 6102. That gold went to the Federal Reserve, was cast into bars, and much of it went into the vaults at Fort Knox, where it still sits. Which means the purity is odd. American gold coins were struck at 90% gold and 10% copper for durability, so the bars made from them carry that alloy signature. They assay at around 90% fine, not 99.5. They are also irregular in weight because they were cast from whatever the melt produced rather than to a market standard. Now, this is not a scandal. It is documented, it is in the Mint's own published inventories, and the total fine gold content is accounted for regardless of the alloy. But it has two consequences that matter enormously for the audit question. The first is that this gold could not be sold into the modern market as it stands. It would have to be reassayed and re-refined to good delivery standard first. It is real gold, but it is not liquid gold, and there is a difference between an asset you own and an asset you can move. The second is that it makes a full audit genuinely difficult and genuinely expensive. Assaying non-standard bars of irregular purity is slow, technical work. You cannot simply weigh them and check them against a register because weight alone does not tell you the fine gold content when the alloy varies bar to bar. That is a real reason the comprehensive audit has not been repeated. Not the only reason, and it does not excuse 50 years of avoidance. But anyone who tells you the audit has not happened purely because there is nothing, there is skipping over the fact that the job is harder than it sounds. And I want you to sit with the connection here because it is remarkable. The gold that the United States government cannot easily verify today is, in substantial part, the same gold it required its own citizens to surrender in 1933. It has been sitting in Kentucky ever since, in bars whose composition still carries the fingerprint of the coins people carried in their pockets during the Depression. So, straight answer, is the gold there? Almost certainly yes. And I want to be honest about why I think that, because trust the Treasury is not an argument. The strongest evidence is logistical rather than documentary. 4,500 tons of metal is not a suitcase. Moving it would require thousands of truck movements under armed guard, and it would have to be absorbed by a global gold market that trades in a fully visible way. Refineries log it, customs log it, central banks log it. A secret disposal of that volume would leave a hole in world supply data that has never appeared. So, the empty vault theory asks you to believe in a 50-year multi-administration operation that left no logistical trace anywhere on Earth. I do not find that plausible. But here's what I want you thinking about instead, because there are two real questions underneath the fake one, and they never get asked. The first is encumbrance. Is the gold there and is the gold unpledged are completely different questions. Metal can sit physically in a vault while being leased, swapped, or promised as collateral to another party. The annual seal audit does not address ownership claims. It addresses whether the door has been opened. Those are not the same thing, and an audit that answered the second question would not answer the first. The second is that $42 book value. This is the one with actual consequences. The Treasury carries the gold at $42.22 an ounce. If Congress revalued it to market price, the Treasury's gold certificate account would be marked up by hundreds of billions of dollars, and under existing mechanics, that difference can be credited to the Treasury's account at the Federal Reserve. Understand what that is? It is not selling anything. It is not mining anything. It is an accounting entry that produces spendable balances out of a price change on an asset the government already owns. That is why revaluation gets discussed every time the debt ceiling gets tight. It is the closest thing in American public finance to a free lunch, and it exists entirely because of a number that has not been updated since 1973. The conspiracy asks whether the gold is real. The far more consequential question is what happens on the day somebody decides to reprice it. So, 5 things worth tracking, and none of them require believing the vault is empty. 1. Read the annual OIG report yourself. It is published, it is free, and it says precisely what it verified and what it did not. 10 minutes with the actual document beats 100 videos about it. 2. Learn the difference between a visit and an audit. Every few years, a senior official walks in and the coverage calls it proof. Now you know what would actually constitute proof, and you can tell the difference in the first paragraph. 3. Watch the statutory price, not the vault. Any serious legislative proposal to move gold off the $42.22 book value is a genuine monetary event. That is the thing with real consequences for the dollar, and for anyone holding metal. 4. Separate physical presence from clear title. When you hear the gold is there, ask whether anyone has verified it is unencumbered. Then apply the same question to your own holdings, allocated and in your name, or a claim on somebody's pooled account. 5. Notice who benefits from the fear. The empty vault story has sold newsletters and bullion premiums for 50 years. That does not make it false. It does mean you should ask what the person telling it is selling. Fort Knox has not had a full, independent, publicly documented audit since 1953. That is true, and no amount of official irritation makes it untrue. But the reason it matters is not the one that has been sold to you for half a century. The gold is almost certainly in there. What is genuinely unresolved is whether it is unpledged, and what happens on the day the United States decides that $42 an ounce is a number it can no longer afford to keep. The most valuable thing in that vault is not the metal. It is the price nobody has updated in over 50 years. If you want to understand how that $42 figure came to exist in the first place, the answer is a single Sunday evening in August 1971, and that video is on screen now.